Welcome, traveler, someone in search of a little quiet in this noisy, fast-paced world. Set down your worries for a moment. Pour yourself a warm cup of tea, settle into a cozy spot, and join me as we turn back the hands of time to the chilling summers of the medieval world. Whether you're curled up under the covers, drifting off to sleep, or just looking for a gentle voice to keep you company in the stillness of night, I'm truly glad you've found your way here. If you have a minute to spare, feel free to drop a hello in the comments. I always find it fascinating to know where you're listening from. Is it sunrise on your side of the world? Or a late night wrapped in silence? And if you enjoy this calm, reflective way of storytelling rooted in history and whispered like old folklore, don't forget to hit subscribe. We've got many journeys still ahead of us. But for now, let the weight of the present fade away, and step with me into The Survivor Speaks. On a faded oak table, in a kitchen quiet as a morgue, sat a small wooden box the length of a grown man's forearm, covered in a thin film of dust, like ashes. I don't remember anyone putting it there. The door was locked. The dog didn't bark. But the box was there as if it had always been there. And I just hadn't seen it. I sat down, hands resting on my knees. My heart wasn't racing, but something twisted deep in my gut, the kind of reflex an old animal has when it senses death nearby. Just one look at the lid and I knew. The past had come back. My name was carved into the top, not the name I go by now, but the one I wore back in Battalion 27, before it happened. The letters were crude, deep, and crooked, as if scratched in with fingernails against soft wood. I reached out and touched it. The wood was damp. The smell of mold crept into my nose, dragging with it a scent I'd buried for decades, the damp rot of northern forests after the first autumn rain. The place we disappeared. I opened the box. The hinges groaned. The rusted metal scraped like bones clacking together. Inside, there were three things. A black leather-bound notebook, yellowed pages stuck together like it had just been dug out of the ground. A tarnished silver Zippo, with the old battalion's emblem etched on the back, a horn broken, three-eyed goat's head. And a scrap of fabric. Dried blood. Pitch black. Folded into quarters, like it held something sacred, or cursed. I didn't shiver. Didn't scream. But it felt like my heart was no longer in my chest, like someone had gently picked it up and placed it somewhere, wrong. 20 years. I buried it all. I changed my name. Burned every paper trail. Moved to a city where no one asked questions. Took a job no one remembered. Lived like a ghost. No talking. No writing. No dreaming. But now it's all back, not as memory, but as evidence. This box wasn't meant to remind me. It was a message. It's time to tell. I'm not sure I'm still alive. I'm not sure I'm still me. Some nights, I look in the mirror and see a pair of eyes I don't recognize. Sometimes I speak and realize I've just repeated the words of someone who vanished that year. I don't tell this for anyone to believe. I tell it so those still silent will know. I'm still here. I remember every scream that died in our throats. I remember the stench burning human flesh mixed with sap. I remember the thing that crept into us not with claws, but with silence. Tonight, I heard it call. And I know. If I don't write this down, I won't be here by morning. What came back after 20 years? My mailbox had never been jammed with paper. I live alone. No one writes me letters, and if they did, it'd be email anyway. But the next morning, coffee gone cold in my hand, I opened the front door and saw it sitting there. A thick envelope. No return address. No postmark. Just one line, typed on an old machine off-center and fading like it was exhaled straight from the past. This is your part. Stop pretending. I stood there for nearly a minute. Didn't pick it up. Didn't open it. Just stared. A crow landed on the wooden fence, let out a cry like rusted hinges. Cree, cree, cree. It snapped me out of it. Cold sweat ran down my spine. I brought the envelope inside. Set it on the table. Sat down like I was about to open a wool. Inside were a reel of Super 8 film, wound tight on a brittle plastic core, labeled 27B, September 18. A burned scrap of fabric, edges charred, crusted with dried mud and reeking of ash. A cassette tape, wrapped in black duct tape. No label. And a sheet of A4 paper, handwritten. The penmanship was jagged, barely legible. But I knew it. Jones. The man who vanished with our unit that year. I remembered with brutal clarity. No one else made it out but me. No one had a camera. No one had time to record anything. No one was left whole enough to write. So where did this come from? I didn't play the tape. Didn't run the projector. Just looked at them, the way you look at someone's ashes. Maybe someone was watching me. Maybe it was a cruel prank. Or maybe, it never really left. That night, I didn't sleep. I placed everything on the table. Poured a glass of something strong. And sat still in the yellow lamplight. Like I was waiting for something to knock. But there was no knock. Only a sound. Faint, from far off. Like wet footsteps. Creeping slowly. Across rotting wood beneath the floor. The leather journal and the last time Jones was seen. I started with the leather journal. The spine had split straight down the middle, the edges frayed like mossy stone. Fine dirt still clung to the pages as if it had just been pulled from a shallow grave. Inside, there were no dates. No place names. Just scattered fragments of handwriting, some short, some long, the letters tilting and shaky, like they'd been written by someone trembling, or crawling out of a nightmare. Night 3, no contact. All devices scrambled. Laughter from the woods. Not human laughter. Miller went to take a piss. Never came back. Found one boot at the edge of the marsh. No blood. No tracks. Told them I heard singing. A woman's voice. Very close. But when I turned around, the entire squad was gone. Each line hit like a blade swung backward into memory. Jones was the toughest guy in the unit. The kind who'd be chewing gum and chambering around while the world fell apart around him. I couldn't picture him writing this in fear. Let alone with blood on his hands. The final page had a circular stain, like someone had set a cup down on it. But the stench wasn't coffee. It was burnt meat, thick, acrid. So strong it nearly made me vomit. I remember exactly the last time I saw Jones. We were setting up temporary camp near a ridge west of Sector 27B. The night was damp and cold. The wind carried a strange scent like rotting meat and snow about to melt. Jones was writing something. The red glow from his wristwatch reflected in his eyes wide open, unblinking. I asked what he was writing. He didn't look up. He just said, "It won't let us go. It's not that we can't find the way out. It's that it bent the road." Then he walked into the woods. Alone. No rifle. No gear. I was the only one who saw him leave. 6 hours later, I waded through the morning mist, following faint tracks. I found deep boot prints in the earth. And a helmet perched oddly on a snapped branch. As if someone had hung it up high. Just to make sure I'd see it. The tape and the sound that doesn't belong here. I never planned to play the cassette. But around midnight, I couldn't sleep. Something was pulling at me like a whisper coiling behind my neck, breathing. Listen. You need to listen. I dug out the old Army-issued tape player, still stamped with a faded property of military sticker. Slid the tape in. Pressed play. The first sound was wind. But not normal wind. It howled in rhythm, sometimes distant, sometimes impossibly close, like someone was pacing in circles around the recorder. Then came footsteps on gravel, hurried, then abruptly stopping. A sharp, ragged breath. Jones's voice. "Miller? You hear that? There's something in the fog. It's whispering. Not language. But it understands me." Then silence. Almost a full minute of it. And then a sound that doesn't belong to this world. There's no word for it. It was like a voice but not human. Like singing, but every note fractured, distorted, twisting like a dull knife slicing through rotted strings. Each time it rang out, the player's light flickered, not stuttering, but choking, as if the machine couldn't handle what it was channeling. I shot up. Slammed the stop button. But the tape kept spinning. Even without power. I yanked the plug. Grabbed the cassette. Headed for the river, ready to toss it in. But then I saw something. Inside the plastic reel, faint and smudged fingerprints. Not mine. Not Jones's. 6 fingers. That night, I dreamed. Not the usual foggy nightmares. A scene. Jones standing in the woods. Holding the tape. Blood oozing slowly from it. His face skinless, raw. Only clenched teeth and lips moving silently. I couldn't hear the words. But I understood. The Super 8 footage that shouldn't exist. I found the film reel in a rusted tin box, wedged beneath Sergeant Lentz's cot. The lid was labeled in faded ink. Z27B Super 8 footage. Do not develop. Yes, do not develop. It was handwritten in red ink, repeated 3 times. As if whoever wrote it had to scream it onto the page. But I developed it anyway. The old projector buzzed like an insect hive. The light from its bulb jittered against the trembling canvas screen. The room was pitch black, except for the flickering glow and the sound of my own breath. The first minute was nothing. Trees. Fog. A few familiar soldier faces. Unremarkable. The second minute the camera jolted. Swung sideways, as if the operator was being dragged. The lens caught a black blur sliding between two trees. I froze the frame. Rewound. Slowed it down. Frame by frame. On frame 1316, there it was. Something standing against the tree trunk. No eyes. No hands. Just skin pale as sun-bleached salt twitching slightly. Its chest was covered in tiny, round holes, like the eyes of dead fish. All of them pointed straight into the lens. I vomited. The third minute the camera turned toward the camp. But the image, bent. Not a film error. The structure of space itself seemed to warp. Tents were being pulled inward, into a central point. Everything twisted like molten glass. A lone soldier stood at the edge of the frame. His face wasn't there. Not blurred. Not hidden. It was just missing, peeled out of reality itself. I stopped the reel. Pulled the film out. Examined each frame with a magnifying glass. And then I noticed something. Some frames were missing. I mean, the numbers jumped. 1316 rightward arrow, 1317 rightward arrow, 1320. No frame 1318. No frame 1319. I checked again. No cuts. No tears. They weren't edited out. Reality itself had skipped those moments. As if even the film couldn't bear to hold what it had captured. Sergeant Lentz's medical file, unresponsive to anesthesia, and the dream of the face without eyes. I got my hands on Sergeant Lentz's medical file through an old friend who works in military logistics. The file was classified. Stamped, not to be stored on digital systems. October 17, Lentz was admitted to isolation after collapsing mid-patrol. When he regained consciousness, he couldn't blink. Or more accurately, his eyelids had lost all reflex. Even under heavy anesthesia, his pupils still reacted to light. Doctors suspected acute nerve trauma. But there was no hemorrhaging. No cranial injury. Only one anomaly. His EEG showed strong brain activity during what should have been a total lack of consciousness. In an audio recording from his intake exam, the doctor asks, "Do you hear voices?" Lentz answers, "Not voices. It's more like shapes. I see it inside my head. A face. But it has no eyes. It stands in the fog, below me. It's waiting." October 18, his heart rate dropped to 36. Core temperature kept falling, though he remained fully awake. When asked why he wasn't reacting to anything, he simply said, "I have to learn silence. Or it'll see me." A week later, Lentz stopped speaking altogether. But the EEG kept showing heightened activity in his occipital lobe, as if he were still seeing something. Constantly. Doctors attempted an MRI scan. The machine refused to run when it began scanning his frontal lobe. No mechanical failure. No power issue. It just wouldn't start. That night lens vanished. No signs of forced entry. Surveillance footage showed an empty room all night. Only one thing remained. An empty bed with 2 indentations in the mattress. As if someone had been sitting there with him. Waiting. Soil samples under the camp show anomalous separation, mineral structure unknown to any geological record. The camp sat on a flat stretch of dry, red-dusted earth indistinguishable from the hundreds of border zones I'd passed through before. But from the very first step, I felt something I couldn't quite explain. It was like the ground was pretending to be ground. I chalked it up to nerves. That was until the steel stakes anchoring our tents began to loosen. Not from wind. Not from tremors. Every morning we woke to find dozens of tent pegs dislodged, needing to be hammered in again. There were no drag marks. No shifts in the soil. The earth appeared undisturbed, yet the stakes had sunk, like something had unscrewed them from beneath and then carefully reburied them. Lieutenant Garza, our field geologist, began collecting soil samples quietly on day 4. Here's a direct excerpt from his handwritten field notes recovered from the notebook left behind after his disappearance. Surface layer is 7 cm thick, standard composition. But just beneath is a dark brown clay-like layer. Structure is inconsistent. Feels like powder, but hasn't compacted under geological time pressure. This soil hasn't aged. It has no timeline. No history. Further down, the handwriting turns frantic, like it was scribbled mid-panic. Ran sample through centrifuge. Instead of sediment separation, the soil liquefied. Didn't evaporate. Turned moss green, then black-violet. I've never seen anything react like this. This isn't soil. It's something posing as soil. That night, Garza didn't return to his tent. We found his boots buried ankle-deep in the earth like he'd been pulled straight down, no time to resist. The rest of him was gone. No blood. No drag marks. No sign of a struggle. Just bare, flat earth. As if he had never stood there at all. And from that night on, every step we took across the campground echoed with something strange, like footsteps that didn't quite belong to us. Synchronized dreams, the faceless figure on night 7. On the 7th night, the camp fell into a strange and unnatural silence. No insects. No rustling leaves. Even the wind stopped, as if someone had switched off the natural world. At exactly 3:19 a.m., Private Ramirez screamed from Tent 3, a scream that cut off midway, like someone had slammed a door on his throat. Other soldiers stumbled out, drenched in cold sweat, eyes wide, fists clenched like they just ripped themselves out of somewhere else. By morning, all 17 soldiers in camp showed the same symptoms. Light respiratory distress. Continued insomnia. Pupils abnormally dilated despite dim lighting. But the most terrifying part? They all remembered the same dream. I stood on a pale field, white like it was dusted in salt. There was no sky. No ground, just a blurred, featureless expanse. From far away, a figure approached. It had no face. Where the face should have been was nothing, like someone forgot to draw it. Each time I tried to focus, the entire scene rippled like a broken television signal. Then came a voice, not from its mouth, but from inside my skull. It said, "It's your turn now." Sergeant Beck wrote in his journal. "I've been to Iraq, Syria, places man shouldn't tread. But I've never seen my men this afraid to fall asleep." A military psychologist was dispatched to assess the unit. She lasted exactly one night. By dawn, she left camp pale and shaking, muttering on loop, "I thought I was treating them. But something was watching me." From that night on, no one dared sleep longer than 10 minutes. Some pricked their fingers with sewing needles. Some drank coffee laced with salt. Others slammed their foreheads into the bed frame. Anything to stay awake. Anything to not dream again. Because next time, in that same dreamscape, the faceless figure had moved closer. It didn't walk. It slid, like a shadow reflection. And it had started to raise its hand. Scorched markings on the soldier's skin, not caused by heat, impossible to remove. On the morning of day 8, the camp slipped into a quiet panic when 3 soldiers, Jameson, Ruiz, and El Tarek, were found unconscious in their tent. Eyes wide open. Pupils nearly pure white. No visible injuries. Until they were washed. Beneath the dirt and sweat, on the left side of their chests, each of them bore a geometric burn mark, as if their flesh had been branded with light, not fire. The symbol, a triangle enclosed in a circle, with 3 equidistant dots inside. It looked laser-etched into the skin. No swelling. No blistering. But absolutely impossible to erase. Rubbing alcohol, ineffective. Razor blade, drew blood, symbol remained intact. Even surgical removal, the mark reappeared on the new layer underneath. Lieutenant Mills, the medical officer, wrote in his report, "The epidermis shows no structural damage. No inflammatory response. But the skin cells have changed color from within, like some form of localized genetic rewriting. I've never seen anything like it." Time of incident, 3:19 a.m., the exact time the nightmares had begun a few nights earlier. When the 3 men awoke, none of them remembered anything. But Ruiz, the tough one, who swore like a sailor and feared nothing but snakes, began to cry when handed a small mirror. He wasn't crying out of fear. He cried because the symbol wasn't new to him. "I saw it in a dream when I was a kid. It was on my father's hand. He died when I was 9. That same year," he told me. "Never sleep through a night without the sound of crickets." Hours later, while the rest of the camp struggled to process what had happened, another soldier, Valensky, silently removed his shirt and turned his back. On it was the exact same symbol. But his had been there long before the mission began. That night, all 4 men were moved to an isolated tent for observation. By morning, they were gone. No signs of a struggle. No footprints. Only the smell of charred skin lingering in the air. And 4 neatly folded shirts, placed as if prepared for a ritual. The compass stopped moving, time and direction began to lose meaning. 3 days after the disappearance of the 4 marked soldiers, a rescue team was dispatched from the Border Command Center. A A-60 Black Hawk touched down in a clearing about 700 meters from the camp. The crew, 9 members, fully equipped. 2 magnetic field technicians. 3 logistics personnel. 1 medical officer. 1 communications officer. 2 special operatives with light weapons. They brought with them 3 magnetic compasses. 1 portable atomic clock. 2 MGR-22 military-grade GPS units. Within 6 hours, all equipment began giving inexplicable readings. Compasses stopped spinning, needles frozen in one direction, pointing neither magnetic north nor any known bearing. GPS units spun endlessly, misreporting locations by over 11,000 kilometers, placing the team somewhere in the middle of the ocean. The atomic clock slowed down by 18 seconds per hour, an anomaly in a device with a yearly margin of error in nanoseconds. Communications Officer Marone wrote in his journal, "I walked 10 paces south. Then turned back along the exact same path. It took 47 paces to return. The marking tape stretched, like something unseen had pulled it. But the most disturbing sign came from the aerial photos. Technicians noticed that the entire camp shifted westward by a few millimeters each night. No earthquakes. No subsidence. Just drift. On the night of day 11, one of the special ops soldiers, Horwitz, hanged himself with his own radio cord. No suicide note. Just one line, written in charred soot across his sleeping mat. I keep walking forward. But every time I turn around, the camp is still ahead of me." After that, new phrases started appearing in the handwritten reports. The loop. False coordinates. Shifting Earth. No direction. And then, the cold came. Even though it was the hottest month of the year, the temperature dropped 1 degree Celsius per day with no weather changes reported. Sergeant Beck inserted a thermometer into the ground. He got 2 readings, 30 seconds apart, differing by over 9 degrees Celsius. And the strangest thing? They began to hear their names being softly called from the forest. Not screaming. Not echoing. Just, gently whispered. Always from the exact direction their compasses refused to point. The last photograph, everyone looking in the same direction but no one remembers turning. Day 12. Lead technician McAllen, a meticulous, no-nonsense man, decided to document each section of the camp using analog equipment, hoping to track the inexplicable changes. He used a Leica M6 loaded with ISO 400 black and white film, trusting the analog system over all the failed digital and GPS-based gear. He photographed the northwest corner of the camp, where the supply tent stood, the medical tent, the quarantine tent, the western tree line where the whispering voices had emerged, and lastly, a group shot of soldiers during their midday rest. 4 hours later, in the portable darkroom, McAllen said nothing. He quietly taped one photo to the inside of the command tent, then locked himself in the camp latrine for 2 straight hours. It was the group photo. 13 soldiers sat around a field table, some laughing, some hunched over their rations, one poking at his meal with a fork. But every single one without exception was looking in the exact same direction. No one was looking at each other. No one was looking at the camera. They were all staring up toward the upper left corner of the frame at nothing. But what made it worse? The photo had been taken from behind. Meaning, to be looking at that upper left corner from that angle, they would have had to turn their heads nearly 180 degrees. Nobody remembered doing that. No one recalled the moment. When asked, one soldier replied, "I just remember eating. Then this chill ran down my neck like someone brushed my shoulder. But I didn't turn around. I'm sure I didn't." McAllen shot 6 more rolls that day. All developed normally. Only the group photo was wrong. Communications Officer Marone, once a post-production technician in civilian life, tried enhancing the photo, zooming in on the spot where all eyes were fixed. It was just a blown-out gray area in the upper left, a glare. But after applying contrast noise filters, Marone fainted. When he woke up, the only thing he managed to say and later put in the report was this: "It didn't have eyes. But I knew it was looking at me. Not through the picture. From behind my neck." The next morning, the photograph was gone. No one admitted taking it. McAllen, who hadn't slept in 2 days, began speaking to himself in German. A language he had never learned. Shared dreams, when multiple people dream of the same room, the same crying sound. Starting on day 13, a strange phenomenon quietly crept across the camp. It wasn't the whispering from the woods. It wasn't the scrambled signals. It wasn't the unsettling gaze from the photograph. It was something else. Dreams. The exact same dream. Down to the smallest detail. The first to report it was the camp's physician, Dr. Alina Grant. In her medical log, she wrote, "Second night in a row I found myself standing in a blank room, a beam of light shining down on a wooden chair. On the chair sat a child, or something child-sized, with its back turned to me. It was crying a wet, choking sob like it was swallowing itself. At first, only Grant. But by day 15, 7 others had the same vision. A white room. No doors. No windows. A circular light from above, source unknown. The crying sometimes near, sometimes distant, but always there. No one could approach the child. Each step closer made the room stretch longer." Sergeant Beck wrote, "I woke up drenched in sweat, freezing cold. My eyes burned because, in the dream, I'd dropped to my knees begging it to turn around. But there was no face. Just a hole. Round. Wet. Where the face should have been." But the worst was yet to come on day 16. The rear operations station noticed something disturbing. 3 soldiers inside the camp moved at the exact same time in their sleep. Surveillance footage showed them bolting upright in unison, staring due north, and mumbling the same string of meaningless syllables, word for word. Dr. Grant fainted after reviewing the footage. When she woke, she wrote a single line, her handwriting jagged and shaking. "We're not dreaming. We're remembering." From that night on, no one in the camp dared to sleep alone. They paired off. Camp lights stayed on through the night, their weak yellow glow seemingly unable to touch the darkness creeping just beyond the tents. One special ops soldier suggested using deep anesthetics to force rest. But Dr. Grant refused. I don't know if that thing lives in our dreams. Or if it just uses them to step inside us. Day 17. One team member, a photo technician named Miles, scribbled something across the side of the supply tent. That room is real. I know the smell of that white paint. I've been there before. The next morning, Miles was gone. No footprints. No blood. Just an empty cot. Impaled with shards of wood. Shaped exactly like the chair from the dream. The earth wall no one dared to dig, when the ground keeps its own secrets. After the disappearance of photo technician Miles, every eye in the camp turned toward a patch behind Tent 3, a natural earthen wall, about 4 feet tall, moss-covered, unmoving for what looked like decades. No one had paid it any attention before. Just an old hump of sun-cracked dirt, nothing strange at all. Until logistics officer Darren discovered that every shortwave signal device glitched when placed near it. He tested it with a 60 centimeters metal rod, pushing it down into the earth. In under 10 seconds, the rod was pulled under like it had slipped into liquid mud, though the surface was bone dry. Private Carson, known for his nerves of steel, joked. I'm digging a scoop. If I hit a pharaoh's tomb, we split it. Everyone laughed. Carson didn't nod after his shovel struck something hard as iron, yet sounded like glass. They dug down. 12 inches. 20 inches. At nearly 2 feet, they hit a shiny black mass, textured like dry tar, with a metallic tang in the air, and freezing cold to the touch even though the desert sun baked the surface at over 104 degrees Fahrenheit. A faint fracture ran down its side. Carson leaned in with a flashlight. The beam caught the shape of a spinal structure. But not one any known creature should have. The medical team immediately objected to digging further. Dr. Grant said, I don't believe in omens. Or spirits. But this, whatever this is. It doesn't belong above ground. That night, at 2 a.m., Carson screamed. They found him digging with bare hands, fingers raw and bleeding, his mouth muttering. It won't stay still. It's not dead. It's calling me. It took 2 full doses of tranquilizer to calm him down. By morning, the earth had reset itself smooth, undisturbed, like no one had ever touched it. All footage from the excavation, photo and video, was pure white. Files corrupted. Thermal scanners recorded 4-degree F soil temperatures for 15 full minutes under scorching sun. McAllen ordered a perimeter around the site. He labeled it the mute ground. But a recording was later found in Carson's abandoned radio unit. Clipped, distorted, filled with static. Crackling audio. It's not under the ground. Labored breathing. It is the ground. 6 seconds of silence. And it's breathing. The sound from under the bed, memories that don't belong to anyone still whisper every night. It started small. Just a few soldiers saying they couldn't sleep. They heard knocking. 3 knocks. Every night. At exactly 2:43 a.m. At first, everyone assumed it was just a dream. But when 5 soldiers, in 5 separate tents, recorded the sound on their phones, all perfectly synced. Things began to shift. Private First Class Russo, the quietest man in the unit, was the first to speak up. "I hear someone crying, right beneath my bed frame. It's not a man. Not a woman. Not a human sound. They took the bed apart. Dug under the floor. Nothing. But when they flipped over the wooden slats, they found a piece of paper wedged between two planks. Old paper. Childlike handwriting. Scrawled, crooked letters. I was here before you came." Night watch was increased. And yet, every night at 2:43, security cameras at 3 separate watch posts went blank for exactly 6 seconds. No interference. No static. Just, white. Lieutenant McAllen ordered a full inspection of the sleeping quarters. And that's when they discovered, every bed frame in the camp had been constructed from the same batch of wood. Batch ID, #DTX1437, originally salvaged from a boarding school fire in 1972. That school had a history. 17 students vanished overnight. No bodies were ever found. Only one child survived, and all they could remember was, they didn't knock on the door. They knocked from under the bed. Carson, now recovered from his earlier breakdown, was chosen to sleep in the test tent. First night back, he screamed. Tore apart his tent. Ran out into a thunderstorm barefoot. It took nearly 20 minutes to restrain him. Before passing out, he muttered, "I don't remember my name. But I remember them. And the name they used for me." The next day, the camp psychologist filed a report. Patient believes he was one of the children who vanished in 1972. He's never lived near the school, but knows the names of teachers, the building layout, even what was served for breakfast. The unit dismantled every bed. Burned them all. But that night, in the ashes, they found something. A baby tooth. Freshly fallen. Still streaked with red. And then, the new beds began knocking. 3 taps. At 2:43 a.m. Not a second off. If you're lying in a quiet room, and the space under your bed is hollow, put on your headphones. And wait. Someone might be waiting for you to knock back. The dream that belonged to no one. On August 6, Private Cooper was transferred out after experiencing the exact same dream 3 nights in a row. He wasn't the only one. According to the August 7 report, 11 soldiers from 4 different units documented the same experience. "I was standing in front of a row of iron beds. Every one of them was empty. At the end of the hallway, a figure sat hunched over. I called out. No answer. When I stepped closer, they looked up. And I saw my own face." Medical records confirmed, all 11 individuals described identical details. The beds. The corridor. And a wall clock frozen at exactly 2:43 a.m. One soldier, Private James Trent, attempted to break the loop. Inside the dream, he smashed the clock. The next morning, his palm was bleeding. A deep crescent-shaped wound, exactly like the arc of a clock hand. That same day, the logistics team stumbled upon an old architectural blueprint misfiled in the maintenance archive. It wasn't in any current database. The blueprint showed a basement floor, directly beneath the troop quarters. But there was no entrance. After 3 attempts drilling along the blueprint's coordinates, the survey team located a hollow wall behind Barrack 3B. They broke through and uncovered a 24-meter-long room. Inside, 17 rusted iron beds, thick with dust. Each bed had a name nailed into its frame. Cross-referencing records from 1972, they matched the names of the 17 children who vanished in the boarding school fire. On the far wall was a small wooden plaque, nailed to the brick. This is where the memories that belong to no one are returned. The air in the basement was sealed off from that day forward. But that night, in Barrack 3B, something else happened. A newly transferred reserve soldier, Alex Ford, woke up with 3 shallow cuts across his palm. When asked if he saw anything in his dream, he replied, "I dreamed I was carving my name into the frame of a bed. But when I looked back, it wasn't my name I wrote. It was a name I've never heard before. That name was Russo. The dust that knew their names." August 10. The basement beneath Barrack 3B was officially sealed. The entire encampment was placed under a 500-meter lockdown. But the dust didn't stop there. By the next morning, every metallic surface in the camp, mess hall tables, military vehicle hoods, ammo crates, began to show faint, ash-gray smears of fine powder. At first, they blamed the wind. But the logistics engineer filed a report. The dust patterns resemble handwriting. The strokes are deliberate curved loops, rounded bends. Like a child's cursive from elementary school. A sample was taken for lab analysis. It wasn't normal dust. It was a compound of charred wood ash mixed with animal blood, source unknown. Chemical structure, 87% identical to the burned residue from the 1972 boarding school fire. Then, everything accelerated on the night of August 11. At 2:43 a.m., the camp's fire alarm went off. But there was no smoke. No heat. Instead, every printer in the outpost activated on its own. They printed 17 blank sheets, each marked with just one line of dust text. "I want to go back to class. I never finished learning. Give me back my seat." 17 pages. Each one had a name printed at the lower right corner. Each name perfectly matched the records of the 17 missing children. Lieutenant McAllen ordered the destruction of every sheet, every item touched by the strange dust. But the next morning, on the hood of the command vehicle, a new message appeared, etched in the same gray film. "I never left." And just beneath that line, a single bloody handprint. Small. Child-sized. With only 4 fingers. The recitation in the morning fog. August 12. The camp was enveloped in an unnatural fog. No change in temperature or humidity according to meteorological logs. Visibility dropped to less than 3 meters. At 5:30 a.m., Patrol Unit 2 reported hearing a childlike voice, reciting from the tree line to the east. 2 + 2 is 4. 4 + 4 is 8. A, B, C, D. My name is. The tone was flat, expressionless. Monotone, like it wasn't spoken, but played back, from a device. The patrol leader made the call to approach the sound. 17 minutes later, radio contact was lost. At 6:22 a.m., only one soldier returned, Private Craig Yelson. 5 minutes after arriving, he suffered an acute language disorder. From the body cam on Yelson's uniform, the final audio recording was extracted. There's something ahead. Looks like an outdoor class. No, not a class. Those are stone benches. But who's sitting there? Don't go closer. Craig, stop. Then a soft scratching. Like pencil to paper. Then nothing. Yelson never spoke again. But he kept repeating one motion with his fingers. Writing his name in the dirt. Then crossing it out, and writing a different one. Devon. Devon was one of the 17 children who vanished in 1972. A closer inspection of Yelson's uniform revealed something else. Inside the back of his shirt was a hand-sewn thread, stitched in red. No one in the camp had repaired the shirt. No one remembered changing his clothes. Lieutenant McAllen issued a strict order. No one leaves their quarters during fog. But the next morning, the voice returned. This time from every tent. The recitation grew louder. Closer. Still in unison yet out of sync. A child's voice. A girl's voice. A broken boy's voice. A voice still learning to speak. As if an entire class that never ended was still trying to finish. One final test. The roll call by the one with no face. Morning of August 13th. After a night of eerie stillness, the overnight watch reported something unusual. No more recitations. No tapping. No voices. Just one thing. A roll call book placed in the center of the camp courtyard. No footprints around it. No scratch marks. No dirt. The first page was torn out. The second page contained a list. 17 names. Each crossed out with a neat red check mark beside it. Below them, one blank line, untouched. Waiting. Lieutenant McAllen ordered the book to be sealed and sent to headquarters for analysis. But by noon, something impossible occurred. The book began updating itself. From surveillance footage, observers saw it clearly. The pages turned on their own. A new name appeared. Yelson, Craig, present on time. Yelson was still in medical quarantine. No one had entered his room. At that exact moment, Craig stood up, raised his hand in the manner of an obedient schoolchild, and spoke. Present, miss. It wasn't his voice. It was a child's. Moments later, his eyes rolled back, blood streamed from his nose and ears, and he collapsed. Still alive but unresponsive. Comatose. That afternoon, commanders ran a sweep of all soldier records posted at the camp since 1973. The results sent shockwaves through command. 4 names in the mysterious roll book matched former personnel who had disappeared without explanation over the years. The newest name added. McAllen, D. Late 2 sessions. Lieutenant McAllen hadn't left the base in 2 weeks. He was in a briefing when the update appeared. Then the power died. Over the loudspeakers, static crackled. Then a gentle voice, calm, measured, like a schoolteacher at roll call, whispered, "Anyone who hasn't checked in, raise your hand." Every camera in the camp recorded the same thing. Hands rising. But they weren't soldiers. They weren't human. They were small. Blackened. Thin. Some missing fingers. Some were just shadows. Some may never have been hands at all. The blackboard that won't erase. August 14th. The night before, the faceless teacher finished reading the entire list. By morning, every soldier in the camp woke up at exactly 2:43 a.m. All with nosebleeds. None of them remembered what had happened. Except for one thing. Each of their personal notebooks contained a sentence, written in black ink. "You haven't turned in your test." Repeated hundreds of times. Lieutenant McAllen, still refusing evacuation, ordered a full inspection of all interior camp walls. The result? Behind the insulation panels in 12 different barracks, faint chalk handwriting was discovered. There were no blackboards. No lecterns. Just cold concrete walls. And on them, simple math formulas. Lists of countries. Moral education lessons. Multiple choice questions with no correct answers. And most disturbingly, a blueprint of a school with 17 classrooms. The entire camp was escalated to level 5 lockdown. The walls were scraped clean and freshly plastered. But by morning, the chalk marks returned. This time spreading beyond the walls, onto truck exteriors, canteen lids, even the skin of some soldiers. Private Marcus woke up with fresh writing etched into his bare back. "Your test, 4 out of 10, review chapter 3. That same day, an electrical technician inspecting the master fuse box found a new message, carved into metal. "Classroom 5 is missing a chair." When they pulled out the emergency camp map, someone rotated it 180 degrees. And that changed everything. The layout of the military camp matched exactly the floor plan of the school that burned in 1972. The barracks aligned with classrooms. The medical unit matched the principal's office. The latrines sat directly atop the science lab, the site where the fire allegedly started. That night, at 2:43 a.m., every camp light flickered violently. Then, through the intercom, came the sound of a page turning. Followed by the familiar voice, soft, flat, unreadable. "Attention students. Final exams will begin next week. Anyone with incomplete work will not be allowed to leave the class." Cameras scanned the perimeter. The entire wall of Barracks 3B had turned dark. As if coated in blackboard paint. And written across it, in shaky white chalk, "I studied. I remember. But I don't know who I am." Beneath the sentence, a childlike drawing of a face. With no eyes. But it was watching. The final lesson. August 15th. The night was completely silent. No knocking. No recitations. No strange interference. Just one thing. Every single clock in the camp stopped. All of them. At 2:43 a.m. Not slow. Not broken. Just, stopped. At the exact same moment. Lieutenant McAllen called for an emergency meeting. But when they stepped into the command tent, everyone froze. The whiteboard on the wall where the tactical map should have been now had a message written in chalk. Final lesson, identity where we are who. If you don't know who you are, you cannot leave class. Each student, please stand and read your name aloud. At that moment, the intercom system crackled to life. It wasn't a human voice. It was a collage of old voice recordings. Fragments taken from drills, mess hall chatter, random moments in time. Stitched together to form a distorted, broken roll call. Private Marcus present. Yeltsin present. Devon present. McAllen, silence. The lieutenant opened his mouth to answer. The lights went out. In the dark, infrared cameras captured what came next. The entire camp seemed to vanish. All except one building still aglow, Barracks 3B. Inside. 17 old wooden chairs, perfectly aligned. Each one holding a figure. Handmade dolls, sewn from rags and real human hair, all facing the blackboard. And in front of them, a teacher. Not moving. Not facing the camera. Just standing there, holding a book. Then came the voice, flat, female, emotionless. Anyone who hasn't said their name, please stand. One chair at the back remained empty. The camera glitched. The feed grew dim. But just before the signal cut out, a man in uniform stepped toward the empty seat. An officer's jacket. They never saw McAllen again. By morning, the camp was abandoned. No bodies. No blood. No sound. Only one thing left. The attendance book, opened to the final page. And in shaky red ink, written like a child's first attempt at cursive. The class is complete. The camp that never was. August 16th. From the recon helicopter, the incoming reinforcement unit approached the designated coordinates. There was nothing. No barracks. No flagpoles. No tire tracks. Just a flat stretch of dirt, thick with dust, surrounded by dense jungle. When they touched down, the scouts radioed back. Cold ground. No birds. No insects. No sense that we're even, standing in the same year. Thermal satellite scans showed the surface temperature was 12.4 degrees Celsius colder than the surrounding forest. Recon photos returned blank. No image data. No terrain render. Just white as if the printer had run out of ink. Then, one of the soldiers, Lieutenant Hayden, suddenly sat down on the dirt, whispering, "I used to go to school here." He had never been stationed in this region. During equipment salvage, the investigation team recovered one surviving USB stick. It contained a single video file, 2 minutes long. No timestamp. No metadata. The footage showed a classroom. Static shot. No audio distortions. No one knows who filmed it. Inside the classroom, 17 students. None facing the camera. all sitting perfectly straight, staring toward a blackboard. Then someone enters. We only see their back. They speak one sentence. If you haven't woken up yet, please stand. All 17 students rise. But then an 18th figure stands. At the very back. No one sees their face. But they stare directly into the camera. The video ends. Black screen. And a single line of text appears. No animation. No sound. This is not where you left your memories. This is where your memories made you. The field that left no footprints. August 16th afternoon. Alpha Reinforcement Unit began construction of a temporary outpost. Right beside the void. That is the flat stretch of land where the original camp had either once stood, or had never existed at all. Perimeter was sealed. Tents were raised. And a new protocol was issued. No one is to enter the central zone for more than 30 minutes per rotation. GPS must be active. Vital monitors and tether lines are mandatory. The first expedition began at 10 a.m. 4 members. Lieutenant Hayden. Sergeant Lee. Private Coates. And Tech Officer Eva March. They moved directly to the coordinates of what should have been Barrack 3B. Everything functioned as normal. The sun was soft. No fog. No wind. But when the team returned after 27 minutes, only 3 came back. Lieutenant Hayden was missing. But that wasn't the worst part. There were no footprints. Not a single trace on the grass. Not a bend. Not a dent. Their boots were clean like they'd never walked at all. As if they had drifted forward. Eva March, the last to speak, finally said, "I don't think we walked. I think the ground didn't ask for weight. We just moved. And Hayden has no name anymore." When the black box from Hayden's monitor was reviewed, it revealed a single anomaly. The only audio recorded, looping endlessly, was his voice saying, "It's not me. It's not me. It's not me." Then silence. At 3 p.m., an outer perimeter guard screamed over the radio, "There's someone crossing the field. It's Hayden." The camp rushed out. They prepared to receive him. But as the figure neared, they saw his face. There were no eyes. No nose. No mouth. Just stretched skin, smooth and pale like parchment. He walked up slowly. Held out his hand. In his palm Hayden's dog tag. And then using his fingernail he cut open his own face, revealing a slit. Through it, Hayden's voice spilled out. Broken. Out of sync with the movement. "I only borrowed this shape." He's still attending his first lesson. That night, on the command tent's whiteboard, someone wrote a single question in blue ink. No one confessed to writing it. If there are no footprints, who can prove we ever walked through? The clock that didn't tell time. August 17th. Investigation Unit Beta was dispatched to the outer perimeter. The mission was straightforward. Deploy 5 synchronized temporal beacons. Each with an atomic clock, calibrated to GPS and the satellite command core. Beacon 5 reported an anomaly. Timestamp, March 8, 1972, 2:43 a.m. Tech specialist Vera Lou rushed to inspect it in person. She confirmed, the clock hadn't been manually altered. But inside the beacon, wedged between the motherboard and chassis, was a small, folded sheet of paper. Old. Yellowed. Written in a child's blue-violet school ink. I did my homework. Please, miss, let me come back. Signed, Devon M. At 15 hours 11 minutes and 9 seconds, all 5 beacons simultaneously lost signal. The final server ping contained no timestamp. Just one file. An audio clip. Duration, 3 minutes, 27 seconds. A child's voice. Steady. Unfeeling. An hour is not the time right now. A minute is not where you're standing. Time only exists inside the classroom. When the bell rings, you'll know who never left. That afternoon, clocks across the forward base went rogue. Each displayed a different hour. None could be synced. None could be reset. None could be turned off. Between 4:32 and 4:38 p.m. a soldier whispered, "I think, time is trying to remember us. But it doesn't remember clearly. So now, it's guessing." And at 2:43 a.m. the next day, not a single clock showed 2:43. But then came the bell. Ringing. Clear. Endless. Not from any speaker. Not from any system. No power. No wires. Just the unmistakable chime of a classroom bell, stretching longer than any of them could bear. The map drawn with the left hand. August 18. The command center ordered a full redrawing of the entire sector, based on the latest data following the unsynced clocks incident. 3 recon teams were deployed independently, no communication allowed. Team A, standard grid mapping. Team B, hand-drawn sketches from memory. Team C, drone-assisted 3D terrain scan. All 3 submitted their results by 10:30 a.m. Teams A and C were identical. But Team B, drawn by Private Louis Kemp, shook the entire base. The terrain was unchanged. The forest remained in the same location. But at the center of the map, where the empty ground should have been, was a meticulously drawn 2-story building, with a bell tower and arched windows. Beneath the drawing, Louis had scribbled, "I'm sorry. I remember studying here." The disturbing part? Louis had never been here before. He was a supply private, transferred from the southern base only 3 months ago. Never trained in drawing. Knew nothing of architecture. And yet his building had exactly 17 windows. Inside each window, the faint outline of an empty student chair. The psychological team brought Louis in for questioning. He only answered once. "I don't remember my parents' faces. But I remember the classroom I sat in. It wasn't my class. I was only allowed to sit in once, that day." An inspection of his pencil revealed something else. He drew with his left hand. But Louis had always been right-handed. No injury. No known trauma. He couldn't remember when or why he switched. Then a data analyst noticed something terrifying. If you overlay Lewis's hand-drawn map onto the 1972 architectural layout of the burned boarding school, then mirror it like through glass, it aligns perfectly. Every corner, every room. The next morning, the entire base received a new auto-printed command. No one admitted initiating it. Map incomplete. Music room, biology lab, principal's office missing. Attached was another trembling pencil sketch. Signed, Kemp, L. 2. That night, Lewis Kemp vanished. Inside his tent, a new map. This one was no longer drawn in pencil. It was made of blood and charcoal. On the back, in childlike handwriting, "The map is done. Now, please, follow it." The bell that didn't come from any speaker. August 19th. From midnight to 5 a.m., all communication systems, radios, intercoms, internal loudspeakers went completely dead. No signal in. No signal out. Yet every soldier in the camp reported the same thing. We heard a school bell. Clear. Steady. But not from any particular direction. It felt like it was ringing inside our heads. Technicians checked the protective headsets. Vibrations were still being recorded. Frequency, 2123 Hz, not matching any known devices used in the base. But when they ran the audio through a spectral analysis program, something strange happened. The waveform didn't resemble any known sound pattern. Instead, it formed the shape of a child's handwriting. When the sound was converted into a frequency image, a sentence appeared drawn in sound itself. "The bell has rung. Who's still sitting outside class?" At 5:17 a.m., Private Soren, a new recruit who had never been near the original classroom site, suddenly vomited blood. There was no physical trauma. Upon examination, a small cylindrical metal object was found lodged in his throat, identical to a traditional school bell striker. No one knew how it got in there. Soren regained consciousness a few minutes later and kept repeating, "I heard it ring right behind my neck. But I couldn't turn around. Because if I turned, I'd remember who I am." At exactly 2:43 a.m. that same day, something happened for the first time. There was no bell. Only silence. Absolute silence. No insects. No wind. No breathing. As if the entire base had been dropped into a vacuum where sound couldn't travel. And then, from that silence, a whisper emerged, not from a speaker, not from a recording, not electronic at all. "My dear students, some classrooms don't need a bell. Some lessons begin the moment you stop hearing anything." At dawn, the outermost guard post reported something new. A blackboard standing upright in the middle of the empty field. No one had brought it there. No drag marks. No vehicle prints. It was just there. Written on it, in thick, trembling chalk. Period 3 begins once you've been silent long enough. A dream that isn't allowed to wake up. August 20th. The entire base was placed under a state of operational freeze. No new missions. No surveys. No withdrawal. Only one order remained: observe and record. But that very night, every soldier in the camp had the same dream. They didn't realize it until they began finishing each other's sentences. I walked into a wooden hallway. To the left was the biology lab. To the right, the shattered window, where I saw myself sitting there. The dream wasn't a nightmare. No screams. No blood. Just a silent classroom. No teacher. No blackboard. Just empty desks. And each soldier saw themselves seated in one of the chairs. But younger. A version of them from before. Yet there was never a mirror. Only shadows. And the shadows didn't follow their movements. Sergeant Braxton, the only one equipped with an EEG dream monitoring headset, broke every known rule of dream research. Upon rewinding the neural imaging from his sleep cycle, analysts found this. The classroom he saw matched exactly with historical photos of Room 2B. The very class that burned down in 1972. And on the desk in Braxton's dream was a handwritten letter, uneven and shaky. If you're reading this, that means I'm still asleep. Please, don't wake me up. I've finished my lessons. And I don't want to go back to being an adult. Signed, Braxton, age 10. After that night, every soldier began waking up to handwritten pages in their personal notebooks. None of them remembered writing. No one saw them pick up a pen. Yet each morning, 1 to 3 new pages would appear written in unfamiliar handwriting. Round letters. Childlike. A mix of English and indecipherable glyphs. A linguist assigned to analyze the samples uncovered something chilling. The syntax and symbols match a reconstructed language once used by the missing children of 1972. In the imaginative games they wrote about in their diaries. One sentence kept repeating. In the notebooks. In the dreams. In the whispers echoing softly at night. If you dream that you're still in class, don't try to wake up. Because a dream isn't allowed to end until every seat is filled. Are you still sitting still? Because now, our viewers are dreaming the same dream too. And in that dream, they're sitting right next to you. The test writer without hands. August 21st. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the tech team reported that the internal printer was running. With no command signal. A total of 42 blank pages were printed. No ink. No text. But under ultraviolet light, lines began to appear. Final exam, subject, memory. Question 1. Where did you study before that place was burned down? Question 2. What is your real name, if adults never called you by it? Question 3. When the teacher vanished, who was the one writing on the board? Question 4. How many classmates sat around you, even the ones you couldn't see? Question 5. Why are you still here? At the bottom of the exam sheet, a faint line read. Note, you don't have to write by hand. Memory will submit itself. From that morning on, every soldier awoke with ink stains on their left hand. Even though none recalled picking up a pen. Several began experiencing selective memory loss. But only for details like their name, age, or place of birth. Nobody addressed each other by real names anymore. Only nicknames remained. In the archive room, the monitoring team discovered a bundle of documents wrapped in an old tin box. No label, no record ID. Inside was a completed handwritten exam. Yellowed paper. Purple school ink. A wax seal on the corner with the marking, P.2, Devon's class. The author, name unknown, signed. But AI handwriting analysis returned a 99.97% match with the scribbled penmanship of Lieutenant McAllen, the one who vanished in Part 1.20. Even more disturbing. The exam was not written by hand. Each letter was pressed deeply into the paper, carved with no visible source of pressure, as if written by sheer force of remembering. Each word burned into reality by memory alone. The pressure marks showed. Not from a pen. Not printed. But resembling a memory so intense, it imprinted onto matter. When the test was placed on the command table, everything flickered. Equipment glitched. Monitors went white. All audio devices emitted a whisper. I don't need hands to turn in my exam. I just need someone, real enough to grade it. Then, on the main screen, a prompt appeared. A blinking cursor. An empty field. A suggestion. Enter grader's name. No one typed. But the cursor moved on its own. And filled in. You. Watching. And just like that, the viewers were no longer watching. They were being called by name. They were now the graders. And no one wants to find out how many times they've graded before. The hallway that only appears when you turn around. August 22nd. A 5-man recon team received orders to inspect the old restroom building, a site previously marked as uneventful. Body cams captured every step. At 10:47 a.m., the team entered. Nothing unusual. But when they turned around to exit, there was no door. No entrance. No exit. Just a solid gray brick wall. Each brick was numbered. And at the bottom left corner, scrawled in chalk, "Wanna get out? Then turn back." One member turned his head. Instantly, the camera recorded. The wall stretched longer. The floor turned into old-school mosaic tiles. Foggy, high-placed windows appeared. A hallway revealed itself behind them. Only those who turned could see it. Those still facing forward saw only a blank wall. When the whole team turned, they saw a hallway that stretched endlessly. Every 5 meters, a new black and white photo frame hung on the wall, each one blurry at first. But the longer they stared, the clearer the images became. A decaying classroom. A communal meal. A crooked playground. A faceless teacher. And finally, a photo of 5 soldiers standing in a hallway, backs turned identical to them. No one remembered posing. At 11:06 a.m., footsteps echoed behind them. They turned. No one. They turned again. The hallway grew longer. And the final frame at the end. It updated in real time. Matching their posture. Reflecting new positions. Exactly 5 people. Every turn added a new frame. As if the act of turning around was what let the space, continue writing itself. At the end of the corridor stood a single door. Scratched into the wood, in a child's uneven hand. The exit is where you once entered. But to enter again, you must know why you left. Only one soldier dared to step through, Corporal T. Holland. The camera captured one final frame before static took over. The hallway vanished. The wall went smooth. No photos. No door. No people. At that exact moment, outside the command center, the internal printer turned on. And printed a single slip of paper. Period 4. Test on the length of memory. Student, Holland, T. Status, currently reviewing. Strange footprints on the old tile floor. August 23. The surveillance team decided to reactivate old disabled cameras inside the quarantine sectors. They didn't expect to find anything. But footage from the night of August 22, captured in the abandoned restroom building, left the entire base breathless. Infrared camera. Timestamp, 2:43 a.m. Location, tile hallway, the same one where the recon team vanished, see part 2.8. At first, empty. No figures. No movement. Until the footprints appeared. Not human. Not animal. They were standard issue military boots but smaller in size. And walking backwards. Each step, in reverse. Retreating, as if unwinding. The tech crew boosted contrast. Traced the path. 17 distinct footprints appeared, each one stepping backward. Then, at exactly 2:46 a.m., something flashed into frame. A boy in a white shirt, standing still in the corner of the shot. His face, turned away. But in his hand, he held something. A dog tag. Paused. Zoomed in. The name engraved. Kemp, Lewis. The soldier who disappeared in part 2.4. At 7 a.m., a response unit arrived at the exact location seen in the footage. No boy. But the tiles where he stood were still damp. As if someone had just rinsed their feet. And waited to be seen. On the wall behind him, now visible under forensic light, was a faint carving. "We're not dead. We just, were never called to the board." And then, a buried archive file surfaced, one no one remembered logging. From 1972 to present day, a total of 17 soldiers had gone missing in this very region. Different years. Different units. No connection. Except one. Each had once been a boarding school student, elementary level. Right then, the internal radio system turned on. Playing a grainy voice recording no one had cued. "I used to go to school here. But I never made it past the lower grades. Because the lesson, always starts over. Whenever someone new enters the camp." The old bell rings from memory notes. August 24. Memories may fade. But sticky notes don't. Especially when no one remembers writing them. The logistics depot reported an unusual incident. Dozens of yellow sticky notes appeared across tabletops, glass surfaces, and wall panels in abandoned sectors. No one admitted placing them. No cameras caught any unusual movement. Each note bore a wobbly, Childlike scrawl hurried, shaky handwriting. The messages repeated in eerie clusters. I didn't hear the bell. The teacher didn't come. I'm still sitting here. My test wasn't graded. And most hauntingly, I tried to sleep, but the dream wouldn't start again. Every time a soldier removed a note, a new one appeared within the hour, somewhere else. One technician, Private Sarah Mendez, tried keeping 17 notes for 3 days straight. On the third night, she reported severe insomnia. And from then on, every night, she heard a soft school bell ringing just behind her ear. Even though no one else could hear it, she began writing down the words she claimed to hear inside her mind. My name is Jamie. There are 17 kids in my class. I sit in the last row by the window. I like math. But I hate the last period. Because no teacher ever shows up. Only the bell. And someone calls my name. But they get it wrong. On the fifth night, as the dream peaked, Sarah screamed in her sleep. My name's not Jamie. I'm Sarah. The next morning, her team found a neatly stacked bundle of sticky notes in her locker. A faint trace of dried blood lined the edge. The first note read, "Thank you for remembering me. I'll leave, if you stay." The second, "Your next lesson begins the moment you forget who you are." Later that day, the camp's loudspeakers rang out 3 times. No announcement. No alarms. Just 3 school bell chimes, identical in pitch to recordings from 1972. Immediately afterward, new sticky notes began to sprout. From between keyboard keys, beneath door hinges, even from the folds of pillows in sleeping quarters. Each note carried the same, silent message. The class still isn't full. They can't see us unless we write our name. August 25th. The base began noticing something wrong. Soldiers who had kept quiet for too many days started becoming faint, not to the eye, but to memory. No one could remember their names. No one recalled which tents they stayed in. Internal cameras caught people in frame. But no one could identify who they were. Not invisible. Just unremembered. At first, everyone thought it was a joke. Until Sergeant R. Lawton knocked on the duty office door and asked, "Did I sign the duty log today?" I looked around. My name's not there. Does anyone remember me? No one replied. He opened his pack. His dog tag was blank. His ID documents completely white. His name had vanished from the digital system. Everywhere. He asked someone to write his name down. A technician picked up a pen and wrote, "Lawton, R." But when he looked up, Lawton was gone. Only the piece of paper remained. And next to the technician's handwriting, a second message had appeared. "Thank you. I can take my seat again." From that point forward, the base issued an emergency protocol. Every soldier must write their name 3 times a day. Morning, afternoon, and night by hand. If they forget, they start fading. They called it the Identity Reinforcement Protocol. But soon after, soldiers began reporting a new anomaly. I wrote my name. but when I looked again, it wasn't my name. I wrote Caleb, but the paper says Devon. I don't know any Devon. Analysts dug deeper. What they found shook everyone. Each time a soldier's name disappeared, a name from the list of 17 children from 1972 lit up on the central screen. No one typed. No one entered anything. But the list of enrolled students was being filled. Slowly, silently. By the end of the 25th, a message appeared on the central display board. No one had programmed it. Whoever is not called will remain seated forever. But if you write my name correctly, I will leave so you can go home. And beneath that message, 17 empty input fields. Below each one, a seat number. 17 seats. One for each name forgotten or remembered by mistake. The teacher never left the classroom. August 26th. At 2:43 a.m., as if fate had a cruel sense of timing, every light in the base went out. No alarms. No electrical surges. Just darkness. Sudden. Total. Infrared cameras kept recording. And for exactly 13 minutes and 27 seconds of silence, every sensor across the base picked up the same figure. A woman in a white blouse and long skirt, walking slowly between tents, always facing away from the camera, never showing her face. Each step she took dropped the surrounding temperature by 5 degrees Celsius. Within a 3-meter radius. At 10:03 the fixed camera captured her stopping in front of a blackboard. The same one from section 2.5. She didn't write. She just placed her hand on it. And every piece of chalk melted and fell to the floor. When she left, a sentence appeared on the board. I never left the classroom. It's just that no one dared walk back in. The class is full now. Shall we begin the new lesson? The next morning, every mirror in the base showed the same faint chalk line. When you finish learning, who will you teach next? The analysis team confirmed. No footprints. No breath. But electromagnetic sensors in each location she passed through recorded anomalies, oscillations matching brainwaves in a state of waiting to be called. One technician suggested broadcasting through the PA system. Teacher, the class is full. The response? No words. No voice. Only this. Every chair in the meeting room slid out slightly, as if someone had quietly taken a seat. That night, cameras finally captured her turning to face the lens. But the footage broke into static. Only one frame survived. Enhanced through 3 layers of filtering. Just half a face. No eyes. No mouth. Only a shadow of endless sadness. On the edge of the image, a faint pencil line appeared, handwritten by someone unseen. I taught them how to remember their names. But no one taught them how to forget at the right time. The final exam wasn't on the schedule. August 27th. Every clock in the base froze at a different time. Main wall clock, 8:12. Soldier wristwatches, 6:47. Control room digital display, 10:03. System monitors, No time displayed. At exactly 9 a.m. every person in the base received a PDF file on their personal devices. Not through the intranet, but directly, with no sender trace. The file name: final_test_v1.pdf. Its contents were identical. A 5-question exam. No instructions. No scoring. No need to respond. Only this header. This is the final exam, not on the official schedule. Don't try to remember the questions. Just know that you're still here. Each question was an image. A scanned, shaky, blue-inked handwriting on torn school notebook paper. When the bell rang, who were you thinking of? If you don't know your name, are you still a student? Who sat to your left during your first math class? When you turned to look out the window, was someone looking back? If you were allowed to leave, where would you go? Some soldiers answered. Some refused. Some did nothing, but were immediately marked as name duplicates in the old student roster. They didn't disappear. They didn't die. But from that moment on, they no longer showed up on the base map. When the tech team accessed the system map, 17 new white dots appeared. No GPS. No tags. Visible only when filtering the map by the 1972 classroom. Each dot matched a person currently in the camp, even though none had ever lived in 1972. At 2:43 p.m., the central printer ejected a single line. The class is full. The test has been distributed. Those who didn't take it, will teach the next class. Immediately after, the teacher's chair in tent 3B, untouched for weeks, started creaking. No one sat down. No one was seen. But the blackboard wrote a new sentence on its own. No one needs to grade this time. Just remember who stayed until the end. Descriptive essay about a faceless person. August 28. The technical team received a strange report from the logistics unit. A stack of student notebooks had appeared inside Vault B, a secured document locker sealed since the beginning of the operation. No one had a key. No one remembered opening it. But the vault opened on its own at 2:43 a.m. Each notebook was labeled. Descriptive essay, week 4 of the school year. Every page was handwritten, in pale blue ink, lines shaky and uneven. Each entry was signed under a different student name. But they all described the same person. She wore a long dress. Her hair went down to her back. Her hands were cold. She never turned her face. But I think, she was sad. Because no one stayed to keep learning with her. Her face was blurry. Like someone erased it, tried to draw it again, but forgot the nose. One final essay had no name. But its first line read, I don't remember my mother's face. But I remember the face of the teacher on my last school day. Because that's when I learned how to forget my own name. The psychology team requested full isolation of the notebooks for forensic analysis. Test results came back. The paper was manufactured in 1971, same batch as the burned-down boarding school. The ink contained human DNA, dried blood. Not fully decomposed. That night, Every soldier in camp shared the same dream. They were seated in a classroom. In front of each of them was a student notebook. They were writing. But none of them could remember what they were writing. When they flipped the pages, each line described themselves. From the eyes of a young child. No one remembered saying any of it. But each essay included something like this. He keeps his head down. His voice sounds like he's afraid to bother anyone. He's lost, but doesn't know he's lost. The next morning, another notebook was found. Placed on the teacher's chair. No one saw it placed. No camera captured the movement. Only this line was written on the cover. Final essay, describes someone who is no longer here. Hint, it might be yourself. When the voice calls your name from behind your neck. August 29th. The Night Watch team reported an unprecedented event. Several soldiers suddenly snapped their heads around in the middle of the night simultaneously, without warning. When asked why, they all gave the same answer. Someone called my name. Right next to my ear. The voice was soft. Not threatening. More like, waiting for me to answer. When audio logs from bedside microphones were reviewed, no strange sounds were heard. But each recording captured exactly 4 seconds of absolute silence. According to the technicians, it wasn't just quiet. It was the total absence of all frequencies. As if every sound was avoiding that moment. The medical unit found another strange symptom. 5 soldiers had faint red marks on the back of their necks. Thin arcs, as if gently pressed by small fingertips. No pain. No swelling. But under infrared light, the marks glowed faintly. Revealing tiny handwritten letters, curling like a child's early handwriting. One doctor managed to read them. I called. You didn't answer. I remember your name. But you don't. That evening, the entire camp fell into a new kind of tension. Hearing without a source. Everyone described the same eerie feeling. Someone was standing right behind my neck. No breathing. No touch. Just calling my name. Slowly. Clearly. At 2:43 a.m., for the first time, an audio radar registered a reversed wind direction. The air didn't move from front to back. It blew from the nape of the neck, forward. Accompanying that was a new audio file, logged from Barrack 3B. Only one sentence, repeated. If I call and you don't turn around, it means I never existed. I will keep calling. Until your name, belongs to me. The next morning, every pillow in camp had a handwritten note. Inked in purple, the way children write in school books. Next time, if you hear someone call, don't turn around. Just answer, with your real name. The roll call list without a roll caller. August 30th. The morning began with a heavy, unnatural silence. No wind. No radio chatter. No footsteps. At 7 a.m., every screen across the base turned on at once without warning. There was no interface. Just a list. The title was scrawled across the top in faint, chalk-like handwriting. Devon Class, Final Roll Call. Below it, 17 numbered boxes. Seat 1. Seat 17. Next to each were 3 columns. Student name. Present/absent. Roll caller. All cells were empty. Except one. On the first row, under roll caller, the screen read, waiting. The acting lieutenant ordered all monitors to be shut down. No response. Nothing obeyed. No device would power off. Then, at 2:43 p.m., the cursor began to move. No one touched it. It crept slowly down the rows, as if searching for someone. When it reached row 9, it stopped. Then, under student name, a name auto-filled. Mendez, Sarah. The entire base fell silent. Sarah Mendez had vanished without a trace on August 24. Next to it, present lit up. But under roll caller, it still read. No one assigned. Security cameras in Barrack 3B then recorded something else. The chalkboard in the cabin lowered on its own. And a line of white words slowly appeared. No one wants to be the teacher. No one wants to read the final name. But if no one calls the roll, class will never be dismissed. A young officer, Second Lieutenant Jonah K., stepped up to the command desk. He picked up a pen. No one said a word. He wrote his name in the roll caller box. The screen flashed. Roll caller accepted. Then everything went black. The list vanished. All machines shut down. Darkness fell over the base as if electricity had never existed there at all. The next morning, in the command room, the chalkboard appeared one final time. Written in soft, white script. Thank you, Mr. Jonah. The class is complete. Roll call is finished. Your classmates may sleep now. And you, please take your seat. Your name is already carved into the desk. August 31st. The entire base shifted into static mode. No new orders. No movement. Just a single message from command, transmitted through an encrypted signal. Hold your position. Anyone not yet dismissed from class must not disrupt the lesson. That afternoon, in the medical tent, a logistics officer accidentally flipped over an old wooden desk to repair a broken leg. Underneath, carved into the wood, was a long row of names. Not in English. Not in Latin characters. But trembling, childlike symbols as if written by someone just learning how to spell. Yet each symbol perfectly matched the alphabet structure of the names of every single person currently alive in the base. The linguistics unit decoded the characters. And in the center was a name. Your name. Yes, you, the one reading this now. One officer whispered. We're not here to investigate the class. We're here to replace the ones who kept it going. Every name called is someone being returned to the seat they left, back in 1972. That evening, the seats inside Barrack 3B began to gather a fine layer of dust. Dust that slowly arranged itself into names. Not random. Each name belonged to the person who sat in that exact chair. During the first roll call, a young soldier wept quietly, staring at the name etched into the edge of his seat. I don't remember ever being here. But this chair remembers me. At exactly 2:43 a.m. The classroom went silent as if it had never existed. But from a disconnected microphone, a woman's voice echoed. If you haven't entered class yet, please step in. If you've taken your seat, remain where you are. From now on, you will be remembered as part of the class. No one read the essay, but it got graded anyway. September 1st. The entire camp received a strange bulletin from a printer that had been disconnected. No power. No input data. And yet, the paper started feeding through from a device in a place that doesn't officially exist. On each page, printed clearly at the top: submission by, your name. Subject, memory, level, uncontrolled recall. The contents weren't essays in any normal sense. They were fragmented passages, as if torn directly from memories that you don't remember having. Examples: I once walked past an iron gate with a faded sign. Beneath my feet were cracked red tiles. I smiled at someone on my left, but they had no eyes. I wrote with my left hand in a dream, even though I'm right-handed. I never studied the alphabet, yet somehow I knew how to spell roll call without checking. The analysis team discovered that each submission contained exactly 17 segments, one for every desk in the classroom. Each person in the base had been assigned one. The eerie part: no one admitted to writing them. But when read aloud, everyone confessed. I think I've dreamed that before. At 2:43 a.m., a grading screen lit up on an old display in the admin tent. No one had powered it on. No one had logged in. It listed 17 names. Next to each name was an evaluation. Memory, passing. Name recall, insufficient. Class acceptance, pending. Self-affirmation, identity unclear. But next to the final name, your name, the screen read: no verbal response, but audio memory complete. Score, 7/10. Inheritance potential, sufficient. Immediately after, wherever you were, a small piece of paper appeared on your desk. Not printed. Not inserted. Just handwritten. In the careful, crooked script of a child. Thank you for learning in my place. I'm tired now. From here on, the class is yours. Please call everyone by their right name. They still haven't left their seats. The teacher's chair no one steps into, yet someone's always sitting there. September 2nd. The entire base entered a state of alarmless stasis. No morning signals. No lights. No one woke up on time. And yet everyone stepped out of their tents at exactly 2:43 a.m. Not by command, but as if following some unconscious reflex. Inside tent 3B, the old classroom, every student chair was occupied. Not visibly. No bodies. No people. But weight sensors reported. Seats 1 through 17, pressure equal to that of a small child. Seat temperature, 34.5 degrees Celsius. No human thermal signature. But not cold either. Just, present. Only the teacher's chair remained empty. But it was gently rocking. Infrared cameras confirmed. No breeze. No tremor. No animals. Just the chair, tilting toward the blackboard. And on the board, words began writing themselves. Today, it's your turn to call the first name. I'm tired. On the teacher's desk lay a thick, dusty notebook. Old. Untouched for decades. When opened, it revealed 17 pages. Each one a story, an essay, a dream that had never been told aloud. At the end of each page, in fine print, this student is still waiting to be called just once more. If left uncalled, they'll stay for another period. Just then, a sound came through the broken wireless PA system. Its first sound in days. Teacher, please take attendance. If any student is still waiting, please raise your hand. No voices answered. No movement followed. But on the teacher's desk, a fountain pen uncapped itself. Angled down toward the roll sheet. Waiting for someone to sign. And on the blackboard, one final line appeared written in ink the color of dried blood. Only the teacher can dismiss the class. No one else has the right.